Welcome back to some new Malicious Compliance Stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called No Bonus for the Boss. I'm a corporate professional in middle management. My boss has a senior manager and he's horrible at his job. The Peter principle totally applies. He got his annual goals sent down from the corporate ether, and naturally he added these things to my list of responsibilities. He would receive a hefty bonus for completing them. I would receive none. He would take all the credit and tell me I was lucky to have him as a mentor. He had this big shot personality. He was a smooth talker that acted like a celebrity, and he was just too important to be bothered by the people lower on the totem pole. He only wanted to interact with people he could brag about. And beyond pokering to kiss their behinds, he spent most of his time at work perusing dating apps. We were a very in-demand group within the company, and we had a revolving door of people coming to our area daily to get help from us. Non-management employees weren't allowed to have cell phones and didn't have access to email, so stopping in was their only option. My boss got furious if I wasn't in my office to catch all the traffic. Completing his goals for him required me to be out of my office. He demanded that I stay in my office for my full shift every single day. And he accused me of leaving the property and stealing company time, because if I wasn't in my office, how would he know I was working? So I complied. I stayed in my office. When his annual review came up, he lost his bonus. Because he didn't meet a single goal for the entire year, he fell under intense scrutiny. It was found that he was using company funds and resources to take these dating app encounters to expensive places, and was expensing it as work-related. He also used company funds that were meant for a building upgrade to build a new patio at his house. He asked the contractor, a friend of his, to just do the work and find a way to add the money into the company bill. He was promptly fired. The next story is called The Last Day. I worked at a restaurant in Los Angeles as the acting general manager, and always had this carrot dangled that was unattainable of actually getting the GM title and corresponding pay. I worked 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. I'd take Mondays off, and Tuesdays, when I'd get in, my director of operations would ask why I wasn't there Monday. I'd tell him it was my one day off, to which he'd tell me that's not how you get ahead in life. I finally had it working for this guy and put in notice, having my employment end on June 1st. I did this specifically so that my health insurance would be good for the rest of the month of June, while I continue looking for new employment. Come May 31st, the HR director comes to me with my notice paperwork marked up to say that that day would be my last day, and was asking me to sign off on it. I asked her if I was being terminated. She said no, and that the director of operations just wanted me to change my last day. So I told her I would not. But if they want my last day to be today, they can pay me unemployment. Or they can pay me for one more day of work and give me my health insurance for the month of June. She scurries off to the DOO, comes back, says never mind, and says my check for one day will be available tomorrow. The third story is called Tie My Hair. I'm a male. At the time, I was working for a software company in the IT department. My work took me all over the company, every day. The CEO and many of the management staff had a conservative lean. I left the military a few years prior to this, and for the first year I kept my hair short, but I slowly got lazy about having it cut every month. Subsequently, my hair slowly got longer and longer. Eventually, I just decided to see what it was like with long hair, so I let it grow out. After a few months, it was well past my shoulders. Then, one day, my manager asked to speak to me. He said, "People above me have noticed your hair." I said, "Oh, do they like it?" He frowned, sighed while rolling his eyes, and then said, "Look, I don't care, but all they are asking is that you tie your hair back." I said, "Is Susan at the front desk going to start tying her hair back? And Karen in sales? Or Margie? You know, Margie, who has her hair down to her waist. Is she going to tie her hair back? Did her manager have this conversation we are having?" He sighed again. He clearly hated passing on this request. He said, "I can't order you to do it, but it comes strongly recommended." I said, "Fine, I'll have it tied up tomorrow." He looked very relieved. Before going home, I checked on the company dress code. There was none. The next day, I came to work with a huge bright pink bow tying my hair back. I wore Daisy Duck-like shorts and wore a fishnet tank top. My manager saw me and just rolled his eyes. A couple of months later, I was fired as part of downsizing. It was then that I found out how much the skills I'd developed over the years were worth, and easily I got a job making well over twice as much. The next story is called I Know It Better. Years ago, I used to work in a movie theater that served food. I was a waitress. The women's bathroom is right next to Theater 13. The sign is right between the doors for the bathroom and the theater. We never have issues because people can tell which is which. Theaters 12 and 13 are right next to each other. The sign for Theater 12 is right between the doors for 12 and 13. This sign does confuse people, since it is hard to tell which door it is referencing. One night I was working and saw some customers walk up. I greeted them and asked them what theater they were looking for. They stated they were looking for Theater 13. I pointed them to the door for Theater 13. The customer started yelling at me, saying I was lying, and they know because they have been here before and they know where the theaters are. I said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know you had spent so much time here and knew where everything was." Clearly they knew my place of employment better than me. What was I thinking? I went off to the corner where my coworkers and I were doing paperwork and watched as they looked around, very confused. They walked into Theater 12, then realized it was the wrong movie. They looked around for a few more confusing minutes. They checked Theaters 1 and 2. My coworkers were talking, and one of them is way less petty than me and started to feel bad for them. I told him not to help them. I didn't feel bad, since he was rude and stated he could find it himself. After 5 minutes of wandering around, the three men walked into the women's bathroom. The women started screaming at them. I fell over laughing. My coworker couldn't take it anymore. He went over and pointed them to the same door I had earlier. This time the men were nice and thanked him. They went inside their theater. About 5 minutes later, someone in Theater 13 hit the call light. This light is labeled Press for Service. I was the server assigned to that theater. I came in and saw it was the same group. They immediately got mad and asked why I was bothering them. I showed them the headlight was on. I turned the light off, as this is one of the strictest rules we had to follow. Get to lights and turn off the light immediately while helping the customer. He got mad and turned it back on. He then told me that the light is what reclines the chair. I told him the chairs don't recline. He continues hitting the light, turning it on and off, trying to recline the chair. He started searching for other buttons when that didn't work. Then he got really dumb and stuck both his hands in between the seat cushions. Those seats were never cleaned, and this restaurant was not very clean in general. I've had to search in those cushions for missing credit cards, and I know that they are so filthy. I saw the look of instant regret cover his face, and he removed his hands, now sticky, and held them up. I could not resist, so I said, "Well, at least you know where the bathroom is." And I walked out. Yes, I know I was unprofessional, but I was treated horribly at that job. I just didn't care anymore. Thankfully, I found a new job. The company filed for bankruptcy a couple of years ago, and I was happy to see them close down. The last story is called 68 cents over. So, I was on an off-site short-term, not really short, project. Coming from one of the cheapest to live countries in Europe and staying for months in Singapore, project location, I had found some places where I could eat for pretty cheap, and the food was good and within my taste palette. We were getting $60 per day for food expenses, but I was spending somewhere around 25 to 30 on average, with the highest ever getting to just under 50. The short project was going along, drawn over 10 months by this point, and our customer's client is raising a ton of issues, 70% of them not really an issue. I discussed this a few times with some guys in my company, and a manager told me to take the client out for dinner and some drinks. He would confirm the extra expense, just be careful not to go too much overboard on the expenses. I specifically asked what that means, and he told me try not to go over 200 to 250. We go out, and neither I nor the client really drink much, so we end up having some food and a drink each. The guys at the restaurant know me well by that point, and almost always do some rounding on the bill or bring something extra to the table on the house. With them bringing plenty of finger food, I end up with a bill of 68. But yes, about 70 cents above the daily limit. Way below the 200 plus allowance for that. At the end of the month, I sent the report in and put a special note for that night. The expense report goes through my company with no problems. But the customer, our company's customer, flags that receipt up as not acceptable and not to be covered. They put me in direct communication with the customer and I explain, nope, not accepted, not covered. I talk again with my company and tell them the situation, that manager X advised me to do so and that he mentioned that he would confirm it. But unfortunately the guy is out sick and will not return for at least 2 weeks. The customer must have this settled by the 15th of the month. He wants to hear specifically from the manager that I was advised to act in such a way and approved by that manager for him to cover it. This is getting crazy and out of hand, so my boss, the owner of our company, just covers it from his side. The full 60-68, not just the 68. The customer says that no receipt that goes over the $60 limit will be approved. Unfortunately for me, the customer is local to Singapore and he randomly drops in at the job site. Face to face, I tell him, you do realize that I spend on average less than 27 per day from the allowed 60? This was laughable to be denied. He probably was offended and he yells at me again, no receipts over $60 will be covered. At all 3 places that I eat every day for the past 10 months, they agreed to print out $60 receipts every time I eat at their place. They even agreed to split in half the remaining value between me and a tip to the server. I had requested for the entire amount to go to the servers as tips, as I just cared for their petty revenge. But apparently, all of them felt a 100% tip every day is uncomfortable for them. Next month's expense report is sent out and the customer calls me directly, seething. He asks why every single daily receipt is at $60 from a specific date onwards. I just replied, no receipts over $60 will be covered, so I have to fit my meals within the allowance. He called to complain to my company, but the relevant person told him that they didn't understand and to please explain what agreement was broken. He never came back as far as I know. I continued charging the max for the remaining 2 months there, netting me a cool $700. And even better service, food and chef experiments that were otherwise only internal to the staff of the restaurants. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.